Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to another session of Import IQ. This morning, we have the chance to have Hussam Mostafa with us from a UDI expert in Chicago. And why are we talking about UDI? Well, as you know, medical devices, the FDA requiring now that every medical device, class 1, 2, and 3, there's some exception, has need a UDI now, and it could be very confusing, especially if you have a compound product or if your product is for direct to consumer, stuff like that. So we need an expert, and that's why we have Hussam with us this morning. So welcome, Hussam.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. Thank you for having me on.
So, if I understand, you're a former engineer. You started in 2007 with Abbott. That's like 18 years ago, and then Baxter Healthcare, more involved in the FDA compliance at that point. Then Aspiria, who a Pfizer company in the regulatory. And then started to touch on UDI compliance in 2019. And now as UDI expert, it's your company as a UDI consultant. Am I getting this right?
Yes, correct. Yes, that is all right. Started as an engineer, and I, as you mentioned, went to Abbott, Baxter, and now doing this whole UDI company thing. So it's been great so far. Thanks.
So before starting me asking you a question, to be an expert in UDI, you need to be passionate for that, I guess, because it's not a very sexy topic. So what's your interest there? Why were you getting into that field?
It's a great question. So UDI, the reason I love it so much is that with UDI, you need the data elements. They relate to regulatory, marketing, R&D, business, project management. So it's like all in all, then you have to reach out to like the FDA. You have notified bodies, the competent authorities, and so like you're dealing with everyone, and you're dealing with all these aspects of the medical device. So that's kind of what really got me into the whole UDI, and I really like to deal with the whole UDI products and the projects that we have. Yeah.
Perfect. So we're lucky to have you this morning. Can you give us a little an overview of what UDI and why it's so what it matter in the medical device industry?
For sure. Yeah, so the UDI rule is intended to create a standardized identification system for medical devices that adequately identifies devices through distribution and use. The system makes it possible to rapidly and definitively identify a device and some key attributes that affect its safe and effective use. So as far as like classes of medical devices, you mentioned the classes. So yeah, it impacts for class 1, 2, and class 3 devices in the US. Some of the class 1 devices are exempt. So you have products that do not require good manufacturing practice, and those are basically exempt from the UDI. And then you have some class 1 products, such as the consumer health products, which have the universal product codes, the UPC. Those, they serve as a UDI, but they do not require for the UDI data to be submitted to, like, for example, the Good ID database for the FDA.
So it's mean, if a manufacturing company is selling, for example, toothbrush through Amazon, for example, those type of product don't need a UDI?
That is correct, yes. Those, the ones that are like the consumer health products, do not need UDI. That is correct. Of course, if the manufacturer wants to have UDI on like the packaging of it, on the labeling, then it's okay, but it's not like a requirement for these consumer health products. That is correct.
Okay. And you touch about the database. So what do we need to understand here?
Yeah, so basically, like for the US, they have the Good ID. It's spelled GUDID. That stands for Global Unique Device Identification Database. This is a database that stores all the UDI information for these medical devices, and there's like over 60 attributes that the database stores for each type of medical device. And we could probably go on later about the question about like regarding like account, having a UDI account, And so you have the medical device manufacturer will have to have an account with the FDA Good ID database in order to collect and submit this data into the Good ID database.
Okay. And this, we have the experience right now where product gets stuck at custom because some manufacturing company, they do have a UDI, but they forgot to upload that information in that database. And, that's how the FDA are looking into it. If they're not there, they wonder, why, and they will postpone that clearance for that shipment. So that database is very important for company to make sure that the UDI are uploaded in that. You touch about some exception. What about compounds product?
Yeah, so combination products, let's say for example, so I guess we just take a step back and say, okay, so we need these products to have UDI, like medical device products, class 1, class 2, class 3. And then you have combination products. If you have a medical device within the combination product and it's already packaged internally in the product itself, then you don't need that UDI on there. But if it's, so now if it's a part of a combination product and you have a medical device and then you have other components, that's where you'll have the UDI on the package of it. So you could have it on the package, and that data will be submitted to the FDA Good ID database. You could have, to be honest with you, you could have UDI on those individual devices, but sometimes it's not a requirement if it's like already internally in that combination product package, and it's something that, once you open up the package, then you could take out the device from there. But it's when you do more, I guess it's not going to hurt, the system, of course. But if you say, hey, it's already a part of the combination product, then you don't have it, and there's more, of course, guidances and rules in the FDA website regarding that too.
Okay, and what about a product that include multiple different medical devices, or some could not be medical devices, like a safety kit, for example, where you have different item in that. Does the UDI needs to be on the exterior of the main packages, or each of them needs to have a UDI?
Yeah, so if you have, let's just say, like you said, a safety kit that has maybe 5 medical devices in there, it's okay to have those UDIs on each of those medical devices. But if you're going to use it as a procedure pack where you're going to use each of these devices in this procedure, then we could have it on the package itself. Okay. You could have it on the package, and you could submit the UDI record to the FDA Good ID database for that specific package for them.
Okay. Is this any difference between product that will stay in the patient, implants, for example, pacemaker? Well, let's talk about implants, especially in orthopedic. Is it different UDI, or it's the same requirement?
Yeah, so if you have something that's going to be implanted, it's basically with UDI, we want to have UDI in the label. So if you have the product in a pouch or on let's say you have a box, and then those boxes are in cases. So the main thing is you want to have UDI on the label, then also the packaging labels. You want to have UDI on both the label, which includes the packaging labels too. And that's the main thing about UDI. You want to have it where it's clear, you could see the UDI on there, and also if there's they call it the AIDC, which is the automatic. See, this is where I messed up. Can we stop right there?
See, sometimes it's confusing.
Yeah, the AI, automatic identification data capture. Sorry, Matthew.
So let's talk about this. So what are the key components of a UDI? How is it structured exactly?
Yeah. So regarding the structure, UDI consists of 2 main components. You have the device identification, and this device identification number is associated with the labeler. The labeler is the one that owns the label. So you have this device identification number. Think of it as, in the US, we have US citizens that have a social security number, and they identify the person. This device identifier identifies the specific medical device. Okay. And so the device identifier consists of, if we look at the number breakup, the first number is the packaging level indicator, and then it's followed by the following numbers, which is the company prefix number, which identifies the company, the labeler, and then it's followed by the reference item number, and then the last digit is the checksum digit. So this example of like a GS1, and GS1 is the issuing agency of these device identifiers. You have three different issuing agencies. You have GS1, you have HIBIC, and you have the ICC BBA. So if you have this device identifier by GS1, this one specifically identifies this medical device. So that's one main component of the UDI. The other main component is the production identifier. Production identifiers consist of, let's say, a lot number. It could also consist of a serial number. It could consist of the manufacturing date being on the label. And then you also have we said the lot number, serial number, expiration date. You can also have the expiration date on there. And then if it's like a human cell tissue medical device, then you can have this production identifier for these type of medical devices that are human cells and tissue products.
Okay.
So that's basically what the UDI, to sum it up, basically what it consists of is a device identifier and these production identifiers.
So it helped a lot regarding traceability of product, obviously. If something happened, you need a recall, you need a specific, lot number, the UDI will give you that information, I guess.
Exactly. So regarding like patient safety and device traceability, it basically substantially reduces existing obstacles to the adequate identification of the medical device.
Okay.
So it's making it possible to rapidly identify the device and the key attributes that affect its safe and effective use. In addition, the UDI will reduce medical errors that result from misidentification of a device. And then it leads to more accurate reporting of adverse events by making it easy to identify the device prior to submitting a report. So yeah, it has a lot of uses, and it's very good for the medical device industry.
How UDI apply to custom-made, medical devices? So, a custom-made product of an implant, for example, that's custom-made for that specific patient. Do they require UDI?
Yeah, so the custom products, and I was looking at this recently, like for Good Idea, FDA, we don't require the UDI for custom products, but to be honest, each medical device, we kind of look at it and do the whole analysis of it just to make sure. But when I was looking recently, like in the FDA guidances, it was saying that these custom products, they do not require UDI, but I like to look at these devices and see, okay, what's the intended usage of the device? Who's the patient population? So I don't want to throw it out there, but I did read that it was saying that no, custom devices, you don't need it. But I personally like to look more into it before I say no, we don't need it.
Okay. So if we look at the regulation in the US, how does it compare globally, with the UE and the MDR? Are they following the same step, or is it totally different?
Yeah, so one thing to note about the US versus the EU, and they have the UDIMED, they call it the UDIMED database, where they store this UDI information. So the number of data elements for the US is around 64 data elements, and then for UDIMED, it's around 126. So right there, we see it's around double the attributes. And so with UDIMED also, in order to register like a vigilance report, so if let's say a manufacturer customer, they want to submit a vigilance report to UDIMED, they have to have that UDI record registered in UDIMED in order to submit that vigilance report to UDIMED. The US doesn't have anything like that. So that's one main distinction that I thought is worth mentioning to kind of, how are they distinguished for US versus UDIMED.
So that's mean, if I'm a manufacturing company in Europe and I follow the guideline over there, for the US, those UDI won't apply in the US. You have to resubmit different UDI for the US?
Well, so you could either have the same UDI. Okay. However, let's say, for example, if you have the US product and you have the UDI on there, and you want to submit it also to Europe, you have to make sure, for example, that the product conforms to the EU medical device regulation, which means that there has to be a CE mark on this medical product. Right. So if it doesn't have a CE mark, then excuse me, then you cannot submit that information to Europe because obviously it's not CE marked and it's not approved for the EU. So it really depends on the strategy of a manufacturer. Do they want to have this product in the U.S. and in the European Union? And if they do, then they have to conform, of course, to both the U.S. FDA and also the EU medical device regulations.
Understand. So what's the biggest compliance challenges company face when implementing UDI?
Great question. So mainly like ensuring that the data collected and submitted is accurate and correct. In the case where there are the product information and master data management systems, ensuring that the systems are integrated according to the UDI business rules, having a UDI project plan in place, and that the plan is executed with cross functions in a time-effective, strategic manner. I'd say those are some of the main ones that we want to make sure that we have this in place for these UDI projects.
Okay. I've touched about a little bit the issue at the border when FDA realized that the company doesn't have a UDI, doesn't upload the UDI. But is there any risk of being non-compliant on the long term? When a company is not compliant and product gets stuck here, is it a red flag for the FDA? How does that work?
Yeah. FDA could have red flags, as you mentioned, and to be honest, it probably it's a public database. So, for example, if the data is not in the U.S. Good ID database, the customer, you could potentially lose out on a lot of money because they say, oh, well, I don't see the data in there, so I'm not going to go with this customer, for example. So it's very important to have the data not only on the labels but also registered in these UDI databases.
Yeah. And I think it's as important, obviously, for the manufacturing company to make sure that they have the UDI and all uploaded in the database. But it's important also here for distributors buying, and hospital, to make sure that the company is conforming, to the regulation. So I'm a manufacturing company and based in Germany, for example, and I need the UDI. What are the steps on where do I start?
Sure, good question. So basically a good idea account can be sent to the FDA, and then the labeler, like you mentioned, so you're the manufacturer, in this case you're the labeler, you own the label of the product. You'll need to provide the FDA with the company's parent, and if their children, DUNS number, the data universal number that's associated with the company. We'll need to provide that to the FDA. And then the labeler will also have to identify a coordinator that kind of manages the good idea accounts. And also there's a labeler data entry person that could go ahead and enter the data and submit it into the good ID. So they'll make sure that those roles are available within the company. The UDI itself, as far as like data submission, so UDI can be submitted manually. So let's say, for example, if you have one product, you could go ahead and just go into that. Once you have the account, you could go ahead and go into the Good ID database for the FDA, and you could enter that data in there manually. However, let's say you have like thousands of products. In that case, you could have like a third party that could submit that data on your behalf into the Good ID database. And in this case, you would just basically let the FDA know that, hey, I have a third party, their DUNS number, this third party DUNS number is 12345, and I want them to submit this data on my behalf. So now they have full rights to submit that data to the FDA Good ID database. So those are kind of like the main things. The process also is online, and whoever wants, they could contact, if they have any questions, they could contact me, and I could kind of walk them through the process. I'll be glad to walk them through the process. So it's just key information that needs to be taken and given to the FDA is the main thing.
So you touch about the GS1. What's their role in this?
So GS1, they're the issuing agency for UDIs. They're one of the 3 issuing agencies. So they let's say for your company, Stefan, you would go to GS1 and say, okay, I need 100 UDIs for my 100 products. They're the ones that basically they'll do the issuance of these UDIs, and they have to follow the standard. So it's called HL7, which is Health Level 7 standard to have this data. They'll have to make sure they follow the ISO standards for these UDIs.
Do they like charge per product or per group of product? Do you know how it's, is it expensive?
Yeah, yeah. So it would be, let's see, you could probably get it in batches. So you could probably say, I want to get 1,000 of these UDI numbers. And when we spoke earlier, we call them the device identifiers. So you could say, hey, I want to get 1,000 of these because I may have, hundreds of products that I want to apply this UDI for. So then based on the company, and then they'll provide the pricing for those. Yeah, and then as far as the pricing, I would say you're looking at from tens of thousands of dollars and then going up. It depends on how many UDIs you need. But if you need, like, let's just say around 1,000 or more, then you're looking at, I believe it's over 10,000 that you'd have to pay for these UDIs.
Okay. So if I'm a small, and we deal with a lot of, startup, a small, medium-sized company, sometimes there are only 2-3 people inside the company. How should I approach the UDI with limited resources and limited amount of money, and explain maybe how you could help as a company, as a consultant?
Sure, sure. So basically, small companies, I would suggest that they kind of work with the functions, so regulatory connect with marketing and also with management to put a UDI project plan in place. I also strongly recommend looking at like the FDA guidances that they have concerning UDI. And there's also ISO standards for UDI, and for like if you want to get the product in Europe, look at the EU MDR 745, the regulation, to get more information about UDI. And UDI experts, we're basically the global center for UDI solutions. They can reach out to us. Our website is www.udiexperts.com. Email is support@udiexperts.com. And then the US-based number is 1-708-289-4673. We try to support all of our customers with the best UDI services. We could get the accounts set up, we could do training, we could collect data, validate data, submit data. We also provide support for the product information and master data management systems. So it's a one-stop shop, and we offer free consultations. So we're definitely accepting all questions.
Perfect. Well, we will add that information when we're gonna post the podcast. We're gonna add your information, so it's gonna be available. Is there anything else you want to add to this topic of UDI?
It's emerging. You have these emerging markets. You have also like Australia is a new one. Egypt already had their UDI, and Switzerland, Turkey. So it's started like U.S. mainly being a requirement, and it's just going globally. So it's it's a great thing, and just to have that one device identifier for the globe is just it's phenomenal. But just want to thank you, Stefan, too, for having me on. You and Matthew, you guys are fabulous. Thank you for reaching out to me, and I wish you all the best with Dow Medical. I'm sure we're gonna hopefully
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, we do those podcasts to help our foreign company to enter the U.S. market.
Yes.
Just wrapping up on UDI, why it's so important, because it's about traceability, it's about patient safety, having efficient recalls, obviously. It's good for inventory management, data collection, it's a regulatory compliance. So thank you again for your time. It was very informative, and talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Stefan.
bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great one. God bless.